Hi, everybody. I'm going to continue on with Virginia Guiffre's memoirs, uh, with today doing chapter 9. We met Ghislaine and Emmy in New York. Get this a little bigger. It wasn't a blissful reunion as I hoped for. Wanting a break from all of this, I was just looking forward to getting back to Palm Beach, not leaving for a further 4 more days. I got home late in the evening as Jeffrey invited me out to the movies after we had relaxed at his house for a while after landing. I put my keys through the door to my apartment and walked into a quiet house. Not thinking anyone was at home, I set my suitcase on the floor and put my cell phone on charge, as I always did, to be accessible for whenever Jeffrey or Ghislaine would call. I went to get a drink out of the fridge when I heard some noise coming from the back of the apartment where my bedroom was. Now, this is not, this is not the description she's giving of when she was with Ron Eppinger. She wasn't set up in her own apartment. With Ron, she couldn't even use the phone. That's how he got caught. She had called TJ, her friend from junior high, and he's the one who contacted her parents and the FBI. But it was like the maid or I guess she did cooking as well, whatever, but the domestic help that squealed on her and said that she was in there on the phone. So, this is not, as I said one time, I was like, except for her description of the sex scenes, you would think you were reading an X-rated Barbara Cartland movie, book, sorry. Let's see. I started back there and slowly turned my doorknob to reveal TJ on top of another girl. When they noticed they weren't alone anymore, TJ got off her with promptness. I recognized the girl from seeing her around at parties, and she was the town Loie, scattering her trails of guys along with her presumable diseases. And I wasn't shy to verbalize that when she tried to open her mouth and calm the heated situation between TJ and I. See, for Virginia, she's a step up from this Loie, it should be lowly, girl scattering her trail of guys along with her presumable diseases. For Virginia, this girl is white trash. But Virginia isn't. She didn't like her cards on the table in front of the guy she was screwing around with and got it up in a fit of rage and attacked me. See, this is why she needed her grammar is not very well. That's why she needed someone to write her memoirs. I mean, that was ghostwritten, the one that they came out with. Still nude with only my white sheets to cover her body, I threw her out of my house, along with TJ. I've been paying your way for months, only finding out you're sleeping with the biggest slut in Royal Palm Beach. See, for her, Virginia, this whole thing about her being trafficked and calling this girl a slut, I mean, come on. At least have some dignity and higher your standards. See, class is relevant. Is relative, excuse me. I didn't really have a leg to stand on since I had started this relationship giving him the knowledge I had a sugar daddy to answer to above him. See, she even calls him a sugar daddy. You're gone all the time, and with that old man, what did you expect me to do? Responds TJ. He was right. I wanted what I couldn't have, but I needed some time to cool down and accept my situation. I loved having TJ around to come home to, and he used to be my best friend in my school days. I convinced myself of the lies I continued to accept. Now, I'm going to pull up right now. Let's do Mayflower Madam. Oops. So this is Sydney Biddle Barrows. She was called Mayflower Madam because her family came over on the Mayflower. That's how old they are. Is an American businesswoman and socialite. She was born in 1951. Who, let me just make sure I'm sharing this. Yes, that's working. Is an American businesswoman and socialite who became known as an escort agency owner under the name, it should say, of Sheila Devine. She later became known as the Mayflower Madam. She has since become a management consultant and writer. See, I mean, being a wife, mistress, I mean, sugar baby, not so much because you really don't have much knowledge about anything, and a lot of them really don't have much of a brain. But see, even, I mean, women, young women are putting themselves through law school, through college. My favorite, they're putting themselves through law school um, by becoming sugar babies. You know, it's this like gray area now of prostitution. In October 1984, her escort service was disbanded, and after pleading guilty and being fined $5,000 for promoting prostitution, she wrote a 1986 autobiography, Mayflower Madam: The Secret Life of Sydney Biddle Barrows. A TV movie based on the story, on the book starring Candice Bergen, was broadcast in 1987 under the title Mayflower Madam. Barrows comes from the Biddle family of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and is descended from Mayflower passengers William Brewster, John Holland, Elizabeth Tilley, and Tom Rogers. Her father was Donald Byer Barrows Jr., 1926 to 2019, of Philadelphia, a descendant of Charles John Biddle. Now, the Biddle family was, this is soldier, lawyer, congressman, and newspaper editor. They've been in banking though, I'm almost positive. Yeah, I think there was Bailey Banks and Biddle I think that was a bank. Her mother was Jeanette Ballantyne. Now Ballantyne, they're whiskey or something like that. Brewing company. Of Rumson, New Jersey, who later married to Felix Molzer, a musician and director of the Monmouth Art Center. Oh gosh, I didn't get some water. Sorry, I should have grabbed that before I started. Barrows attended Stoneleigh Burnham, a girls' boarding school in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Okay, I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that one. It was founded in 1869. Well, one of your typical East Coast prep schools. She later married Felix Malzer. Okay, I already read that. And it is alumni of the Fashion Institute of Technology. Oh, she didn't even go to like Rollins or Smith or one of those. Um, so this is, well, she worked as an assistant to Alan Snyder, I don't know, buyer for Abrams and Strauss. Okay, she's getting into the Jewish world, was introduced to high class prostitution, and started her own escort service named Cache, which existed in New York City from 1979 to 84. Some of its clients included industrialists, high powered business executives, lawyers, foreign diplomats, and Arabian oil sheiks. In October 1984, Cache was shut down, Barrows was arrested, and the Manhattan District Attorney Office charged her with promoting prostitution. She was arrested. Mayflower Madam was coined by New York Post. Peter Fearman. Barrows appeared in 1987 on Saturday Night Live. With a parody of her book. The sketch included Candice Bergen, who portrayed Barrows in the made-for-TV movie Mayflower Madam. Barrows subsequently wrote 2 books on sexual etiquette. Let's see, in late 2008, Barrows finished Uncensored Sales Strategy, a radical new approach to selling your customers what they really want, no matter what business you're in, co-authored with marketing expert Dan Kennedy. Since the late 1990s, Barrows has run a consulting business with a focus on customer service and experience. I wonder what they're experiencing. Barrows was divorced from the late Darnay Hoffman, a high-profile lawyer. Again, I do believe, well, I mean, Hoffman, not necessarily Jewish, but most of the time it is. Yeah, so, I mean, this is not against the Jews, it's just this is New York, Manhattan, okay? Yeah, Wall Street and the legal profession, I'm sorry, they are a problem there. They are a big problem there. Again, nothing against the Jewish people or the Jewish faith, but this little cesspool of, I mean, all of them in Wall Street, they're all responsible. However, the Jewish faction is really the ones who are in control of all of this. And they've got to be stopped. So anyway, what I wanted to, so in Plato Retreat, this is a New York nightclub. It's a swingers club. Was a heterosexual swingers club catering to couples. From 1977 until 1985, it operated in 2 locations in Manhattan, New York, US. The first was the former location of the Continental Baths, a gay bathhouse that also showcased artists who went on to great success, including Bette Midler, Barry Manilow, and Melissa Manchester. I don't know who Melissa Manchester is. Oh, okay. It was established in 1976. Larry Levinson, again, a Jewish New York Jew, a high school friend of Al Goldstein, was an American pornographer best known for publishing the sex newspaper Screw, and a former fast food manager who was selling ice cream at Coney Island. Was in these days selling ice cream. And this swinger thing, look, Washington, D.C. Swinger Club, DuPont, a circle. So yeah, I'm not making this up. Okay, it's a mini golf place, But quite frankly, with what came out with Pizzagate, one has to ask themselves if there's something else going on there. I went there once. I mean, it was well, actually, I've been there a couple times when it's been other establishments. Once back in the '80s, and I always remember it because it was the one time I almost got robbed. And we were walking through DuPont Circle, and we were going there. It was some restaurant or something. I went there another time. They had some pool tables downstairs, and again, it was a restaurant. That was the pool table was when I came back in 2009. It was shortly after with my brother and some of his friends. Anyway, the time I got robbed. So we're walking across DuPont Circle and at nighttime. And I'm with this friend, and some guy comes up to us, and he's like, "Oh, give me your, chain around your neck or whatever." And the guy says, "Oh, this old thing," or maybe it was the bracelet or something. "Oh, this cheap old thing." And he just like pushes me along, like guides me along, keeps us moving past. And when we get, then the other guy leaves, and when we get to the opening to go downstairs to this, what is the swingers club now, he's go, "Did you see he had a gun? He had a gun." I'm like, "No, he didn't." So I do remember that place and it was the only time I ever almost got robbed in DC. I mean, I worked in nightclubs and stuff. I got on my bike after when I get off work, get there and head down. I really shoot down Mass Avenue when I'd hit Mass. And I lived at the corner of like Florida and 18th. 18th, yeah, that heads down there. So anyway, after organizing swinging parties himself for a time, he opened a club for swingers in 1977 in the basement of Kenmore Hotel on East 23rd Street between Lexington and 3rd Avenue. And called it Plato's Retreat. Okay, rules and premises. Plato's Retreat was a members-only establishment that was legally not a public business. This meant that members had to follow the club's rules. Levinson did not allow men unaccompanied by women to enter. This was an attempt to block male homosexuals, and he also prohibited male-male sexual activity between the men that did get in. Women on women sex, however, he encouraged. Unaccompanied women were welcome, often at a discount rate or free. Once a woman left a room after a sexual encounter, her male companion had to accompany her within 2 minutes. This rule was intended to control the male-female ratio. Alcohol and other drugs as well. Paid sexual services were all forbidden, but the prohibitions were not enforced, which would have been difficult at best. In later years, sex workers did frequent the premises, and there was rampant use of drugs, most often quaaludes, by patrons. According to his 1979 advertisement in Screw magazine, they even have a magazine, the club offered, beside a heated pool, a swimming pool, a steam sauna, whirlpool baths, disco dancing, free bar, they don't allow alcohol, and buffet, cozy living rooms and lounging areas, a variety of swing areas, and a backgammon lounge. During its heyday, Plato's Retreat was considered the world's most infamous sex club, popular with celebrities, porn stars, and well-to-do couples. The clientele was described as an assortment of kinky types from the suburbs, dry cleaners and their wives, or fat men in toupees with their heavily made girlfriends, or heavily made up girlfriends. Kind of reminds you of all the women, the Trump makeover. As soon as these girls get into the orbit of Trump, they've had their hair done, their makeup, they look like a Stepford wife. Owner Levinson often partook in sexual activity on the premises. winning a bet against Al Goldstein and Butch Katz, owner of 42nd Street Roxy Burlesque Theater, that that he could ejaculate 15 times within a 24-hour day. George Urban visited the club to film a segment for his television show, The Ugly George Hour of Truth, Sex, and Violence. In 1979, Levinson opened Plato's West on Ivor Avenue in Los Angeles, but the venture, a failed attempt at franchising, was not successful and lasted only 6 months. In 1980, Plato's relocated to 509 West 34th Street. I went to the west side. Decline and closure. In 1985, New York City Mayor Ed Koch backed the New York Health Department's decision to shut down the city's gay bathhouses. In response to concerns over the spread of HIV/AIDS in closing the gay houses while allowing the heterosexual swingers clubs, the most notably Plato's Retreat, to remain open, the city found itself in violation of the newly adopted anti-discrimination laws. It shuts down in 1981. Let's see, at the time of the shutdown, officials argued the club was a place of prostitution and observed during undercover operations and operated without a certificate of occupancy. Levinson argued that the undercover agents constructed the prostitution evidence on the premise while investigating. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. 1981, Levinson and his by then two partners, along with Plato's accountants, were tried and convicted for tax evasion. Nothing else. When the prosecution asked Levinson, who was the only owner to take the stand, why Plato's kept its accounting records off the premises, Levinson replied, "Where would I keep them? In the swimming pool?" He served an 8-year prison sentence. After getting out of prison, he worked as various jobs, such as a cab driver. Well, he died in 1999 of a quadruple bypass heart surgery. Okay. So it has appeared in pop culture in 1978. It's appeared in pop culture. In Florida. Oh, they had one in Florida. There was a Plato's Retreat there. It first appeared in 1995 in a listing of adult establishments in Miami, a very unique private club. It then opened at BYOB Club in Fort Lauderdale. That's where Congressman Clay Shaw, his daughter, was a classmate of mine at Foxcroft. He was the author of the Missing Child's Act. The Center for Missing and Exploited Children is involved in the trafficking of children with CPS. Run by the wife of the original owner, Larry Levinson, 1990. Obituary does not mention wife. Okay. It was an on-premise homosexual swingers club. So you see, and then you also had Studio 54. Okay, they kept their clothes on and, they didn't have sex on the premises, although I never went there. Although you did have more than your fair share of cocaine all over the place and other drugs. And, everybody was like, what was it, poppers or something at the time. Like where everybody was dancing, they had these poppers. What I'm doing. All of this stuff has been around for so long and it's been promoted for so long. Everybody was hanging out, all of the celebrities. This Plato's Retreat, I remember reading that Richard Dreyfuss, he used to go there like once a month, but he'd go alone. Apparently you were supposed to go, you weren't supposed to go alone as a man, but they let him in. Uh, okay, let's see. Plans for an opera house. Let's see. Studio 54 is located at 254 West 54th Street, Midtown Manhattan. Design below, upstairs. Uh, no, as I said, I never went there, but I heard about it. I know Cornelia always hung out there. It was always, the place to see and be seen. And no, here, these notable patrons. See, Woody Allen, Michael Baryshnikov, Jacqueline Bisset, Truman Capote. Yeah, Truman Capote hung out with CZ Guest. And I mean, that was Cornelia was hanging out there when she was 15 with Halston, and she dated Sylvester Stallone. And she was, I always wondered, like, what was there any like inappropriate relationship with her and Andy Warhol? Because she was like his muse, one of his muse. He's always had these girls. So I don't know. I don't know if Andy Warhol ever abused these girls or not. I mean, Cornelia, she never got married or anything. And when we were in Foxcroft, there was a rumor that she had an incestuous relationship with her brother. It was a rumor. I have no idea. I always felt sorry for her either way. I felt sorry for her if it was true, like what kind of family life does she have? And sorry for her if it was not true, but people were spreading those, rumors about her. So anyway, Salvador Dali, Faye Dunaway, Doris Duke, Farrah Fawcett, Betty Ford, Tom Ford, Diane von Furstenberg. I mean, the list goes on. Jackie O, Tom Jones, Elton John, Mick Jagger, Bianca Jagger, Michael Jackson, Maura Hutton, Tommy Hilfiger, Angelica Houston, Al Pacino, Dolly Parton, see Diana Ross, Brooke Shields. Brooke Shields, she was that was scandalous. Oh, her nudity at 14 years old on the screen. That wasn't rated X. I know it wasn't rated. I'm sure it was rated R, but not X. John Travolta, Donald and Ivana Trump, Tina Turner, Andy Warhol, Robin Williams, Liza Minnelli, John Lennon. I wonder, Cornelia's not on here. Oh, she didn't make it to the list. Other notables, Al Corley, who was the doorman. I don't know. Oh, Alec Baldwin, who worked for 2 months as a waiter. Um, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. Alec Baldwin comes from a family of all of he and his brothers are actors. So yeah, they've all been in this business. So anyway, that was there. And I also saw something about, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was an exclusive club. This is like in the 1800s, and it had all of the, upper crust, and it was for courtesans. Um, and effectively it was disbanded when it was finally gone after it because it was being used to blackmail. It had the goods on all of these guys in New York, and things that people didn't want exactly polite society to know. So anyway, um, okay, so he was right. I wanted what I couldn't have, but I needed some time to cool down and accept my situation. I loved having TJ around to come home to. And he used to, again, she misuses to come home to OO is also. And he used to be my friend in my school days. I convinced myself of the lies I continued to accept. Days later, I was still not speaking with TJ, mentally adjusting to my circumstances. I thought I'd have the day off to relax since I hadn't been called all day. Until about 5 p.m. when Ghislaine called and said Jeffrey would like a massage in an hour. Grudgingly, I got up from relaxing on the couch, got dressed, and put my makeup on, meeting Juan downstairs a half an hour later. Jeffrey was already lying on the massage table when I walked in. You have to understand, this girl has this luxury apartment in Royal Palm Beach to be on call to go and give a massage and some servicing. Whenever Jeffrey wants. She's being a kept woman, but he's not trafficking her all the time. We've had one occasion that she had to sleep with, well, give a massage to this pregnant woman and sleep with the husband. So, and I think that was also kind of a test and see, will she do this if I ask her to do it, because I might do it in the future. However, for the most part, Jeffrey kept her for himself, and also she wasn't privy to these satanic rituals. Now, I'm not sure if, because like Sasha Riley's testimony, I didn't hear him mention like Jeffrey Epstein being there. So I'm not quite sure where within the satanic stuff and the Pizzagate, the cannibalism of children and the sacrifices there. I'm not sure exactly how involved he is in all of that stuff. I don't know. That's a question that's coming to my mind at present. And something, see, if you want to accountability, you have to get to the truth. And not, well, he was a scumbag, so who cares if he was involved in this or not? It's not, oh, well, you're just trying to exonerate. No, it's trying to get to exactly the truth, hold people accountable, and stop what's going on. Because this whole thing, this is one of the reasons I'm pissed off with the podcasters at the moment. We've got, right now, I'm concerned about the Andy Biggs grandchildren, the daughters of Cosette, the young woman who died. And she definitely had an obesity problem. Now, she did have three young children, one right after the other. So, but I don't know. Yeah, there's just a lot of questions about what's been going on in Andy Biggs' home and family, because Andy Biggs is definitely in the Sasha Riley stuff, and ooh, that's bad. It's real bad. But then, so Cosette's husband, the widow, the widower, no, the widow, no, the widower. Sorry. What do we call the male? He is the Chancellor of Dracul. That's where my mind was going, and I'm just like, oh God. So yeah, as I say, I'm concerned about those three young girls. They're very young, and there's many questions about what the father is involved in. Then there's also Mitch Snow's son, still with his mother. So, and as I say, those are the two cases that I have learned about recently that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about everybody. And that all of this Pizzagate and all of this crap, it's been going on for a long time. I knew about this in Brussels when my children were born 30 plus years ago. That came out. I remember it being on the news. And I mean, in those days, we had cable, but we didn't have internet. Um, so I remember all of that stuff coming out. So that this is happening in the US is not a surprise. And elsewhere, it's going on everywhere, and it's got to stop. And it's not just the Christians, it's not just the Americans and Judeo Christians. Okay, days later, I was still not speaking with TJ, mentally adjusting to my circumstances. I thought I'd have the day off to relax since I hadn't been called all day. Oh, sorry, I already read that. Um, I started the massage being very quiet for my somber mood when Jeffrey picked up on it and said, it's not good to massage people when you're angry. You could pass on negative energy. I wasn't sure if he was serious or just trying to be nice so I could speak about what was bothering me, ending up not being able to contain my. See, she's not like just the hired help. They do have some sort of relationship, however weird it is. Emotion any further, I told him what happened with TJ and broke down in tears, a little heartbroken from living in such a lie. He turned around from his massage and sincerely paused for a second, thinking he was going to console me, but he laughed at the very prospect of my notion that monogamous relationships ever existed. Are you serious? He was only doing what every guy in the world does. You can't hold that against him. See, he's normalizing the situation, and it is a normal. Amongst these people, it is a normal situation. I replied in a light-hearted gesture. Whose side are you on, anyways? His answer stuck with me for many years to come. I'm on your side, which is why I'm going to save you a lot of grief with this one tip. Never expect a man to be faithful, and you'll never be let down. It's just the way us men are genetically imprinted. The remainder of the massage, I had to pretend like I wasn't further saddened by his response, but in fact, having to act enlightened. I would never come to him for any other relationship advice ever again. He told me I'd be fine if I just listened to my mentor. He still loved role-playing the teacher and me the pupil, like the old days before he got rich and only used to be a college professor. See, there was something going on there. See, he was already working it back then. I finished the massage and fulfilled my sexual duties before being sent home, wanting to collapse in anguish. But as I say, she does have a relationship with this guy, and this is nothing. If you read the first four, well, it's the first two videos. I did chapter 1, chapter 2, and then chapter 3 and chapter 4 together. Read those about what she went through with Ron Eppinger and how she's liberated by the FBI. Chapter 1, her memoir starts when she's picked up by Ron Eppinger on the street. She's hungry, she has no money, and he's like, "Oh, hi, how you doing? Why don't you jump in here in my limousine with these other girls, and I'll take you back to my place." Um, and again, she's 14 out on the street. So she doesn't have many prospects. That's what we need to think about is let's stop having 14-year-olds who are out there on the streets by themselves and no place to go and no one to turn to. That's what I want to focus on. Let's see. TJ was outside my apartment door when I got there. His mom was waiting downstairs in her minivan, just in case I kicked him out again. He pleaded his guilt and promised that he would never see her again, agreeing with me that she was the town slut, and he screwed up big time. I let him back into my apartment and back into my life, for that matter, but more aware of the world I was being led into believing was of normal conduct, accepted by everyone in this sick world. See, I mean, he's West Palm Beach. She went to school with this guy. And he heard about where she was through all the girls at the high school. Now, I'm not sure, because she's obviously not going to high school there. She's not finishing. So I think maybe she finishes later, correspondence or something. I'm not positive. So, and the girls at the West Palm Beach, they want to, for her to hook them up with Jeffrey Epstein to give them a massage so they can go shopping as well. Let's see. Jeffrey was going back to NYC and told me to have a few days off before his assistant at his office would arrange an e-ticket on a commercial flight for me to join him later on in the week. Oh God, she's got to fly commercial. Oh, quelle horreur. I had just made loads of money from my previous trip and wanted to relax like any teenager does. At that age, at her age, on my vacations, while all the Foxcroft girls were going down to Palm Beach, I was at my parents' farm reforming houses. They had a farm in I think they eventually had 3 of the houses. When they bought it, there was like a barn and a couple houses. They tore down the barn. Oh, I remember the mice running around. We're cleaning that shit out. Oh God. Yeah, so anyway, the favorite was painting the ceiling till 4 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, I had just made loads of money from my previous trip and wanted to relax like any teenager does. So I threw a hotel party that weekend on Singer Island and Rivera Beach, inviting only a small group of friends to begin with. The hotel room quickly filled up with a flood of teens, and the pumping music was blaring. The room had a balcony overlooking the pool and the beach that became the smokers' section. I wasn't a real smoker at that point, preferring to have a puff of a spiffed blunt, I don't know what that is, instead. So I made it my rule to go outside, trying to prevent holes in the carpet, but it didn't last too long when our forbidden walls came tumbling down. Making so much money that I couldn't supply my wild parties, that I could supply my wild parties with an assortment of drugs like trips, ecstasy, and coke, as well as an abundance of alcohol that TJ had all the contacts for, made my fellow teens admire me. See, she's living the good life with sex and drugs and rock and roll. It definitely gave me a head swell thinking here I was so young, but so grown up already, with all of my peers from high school looking up to me. In the wee hours of the morning, we were all still going hard with our eyes dilated into little black diamonds. See, I mean, this girl is not, being held against her will and passed around from one John to another. We were all having in-depth conversations about life and where we would all end up when this charade was all said and done, I should say. Nobody got to sleep that night as the room slowly dwindled in numbers as people were finding their way home to recover from the repercussions of drugs wearing down out of their intoxicated system. When I flew out to New York, NYC, to meet Jeffrey the next day, I was still in a horrible state. Not knowing what was wrong with me, thinking it was just a bad come down, I rushed out of the elevator and down the hall to my room, sweating profusely to make it just in time to the toilet to throw up bile again for the uncountable time since getting off the plane. I was having intense cramps in my stomach, and when I was called down to meet Jeffrey in the massage room, I had to decline for the first time. I told the housekeeper that I was feeling very ill after the flight, maybe some off food for lunch, and needed to lie down for a while. Nobody came up to check on me for hours or even called. Waking up from my much-needed nap, I pulled back the expensive white sheets to find myself in a pool of my own sweat and blood. I was covered in the red stains that drenched the pants I was wearing. I had no idea what was going on. I could only focus on the dire amount of pain I was in. In between the heaves of throwing up and crying simultaneously, I was able to reach the phone and call the housemaid on the intercom. I told her I needed to go to a hospital immediately and slammed the phone down, only to fall back to the floor, hurtled in a ball. She didn't hesitate in calling Ghislaine, who ran up to see what was wrong. Ghislaine then called Jeffrey, who was in his office at the time, and told him to hurry up to my level, stressing to him that it was an emergency. Thinking they really cared about me for the first time since I'd known them, they came with me to the hospital with me. Now I realize I was only a liability in getting them caught, and they needed to get to the doctors before I could say anything incriminating. They were suspecting the worst now, and seeing he never wore a condom with me, and from our previous conversation, they knew I always made TJ wear one, they feared the situation at hand. When he saw the catastrophic state I was in at that point, it was the housemaid who helped me get up and assisted me down to the car where Jojo was waiting for me. He drove us to either Lenox Hill Hospital or Mount Sinai. I can't remember, as it was so blurry in such a bad condition. Rushed in for immediate testing, I was uncontrollably vomiting, and in so much agony, I was given an injection to help me subside the intense pain. A nurse came in to ask who would pay for this, and although I insisted my parents' insurance still covered me, Jeffrey persisted that he'd take care of all of the medical bills and gave the nurse his information. I'm not sure about her saying something about her parents' insurance. I don't think she's going to let her parents know about that. When the pain relief kicked in, everything and everyone dwindled away until I felt like Alice in Wonderland, who just swallowed the shrinking tablet, and everyone standing around me seemed to move so quick, speak so loud, and hover above me. When I awoke from my induced state, I was alone in a different room, not knowing at all what went on, but feeling a little better. I called in the nurse, who looked through my charts and checked my vital signs. They told me the doctor would be in shortly to inform me of the conclusion to my illness. He was a tall man with dark hair and a hardened look about him, obviously from his job and constantly seeing the worst horror stories man could think of. Well, I don't know why she would think he's seen horror stories. I mean, okay, New York emergency room, but he just bluntly told me I had miscarried in early stages of pregnancy. I should be fine to go home as soon as my course of intravenous antibiotics was complete. The news sunk in fast and hit a deep nerve. I waited for the doctor to close the curtain before I let out any emotion and cried for my disastrous lifestyle that was dragging me into a world that I wanted to break out of. This reoccurring cycle of believing I needed men like Jeffrey to succeed in life was draining the last bits of sensitivity left in my heart. See, why does she believe that she needs a sugar daddy to succeed in life? You know, she went home, she was living at home with her parents and working at Mar-a-Lago. She had a job, she had a roof over her head, she could have gone to school. You know, as I say, when I was, let's see, it was 19 years old. First, my mom, she comes up with the idea to waste $10,000 for the debutante art. This, in her mind, oh God, I've gone to work for a Republican. I'm going to get out of control. She'll find a respectable husband for me who will control me. Oh gosh, so that doesn't work to her liking. Wasted $10,000. So then she disowns me. I mean, to be fair, she disowned us all that year, that summer, when I'm 19. And so I bucked it up. I was already working for the senator during the mornings while I was at school, and I was getting paid for it. You usually didn't get paid for it, but I had said, well, I do need to get paid because my mom was like, I'm not paying for that. That was it was my senior year of high school. It was for the mini term. And that was originally how it started. And for the month, I needed to rent a room. And I ended up renting a room from Washington Post journalist Walter Pincus. He's been ignoring me ever since I've been back. Oh, his wife's a piece of work. So anyway, let's see. The news sucked in fast and I hit a deep nerve. I waited for the doctor to close the curtain before I let out any emotion and cried for the... Okay, let's see. I was picked up by Jeffrey himself, who took the doctor alone to the side of the busy hallway to have a private conversation about something. Jeffrey wasn't comforting at all. Instead, he sent me back home to rest for a couple weeks, and I only fell deeper into a depression, using all forms of self-medication to treat my sorrows. Well, I mean, you know, if she had a miscarriage, she's not going to exactly be servicing him for a while. 2 weeks later, as if Jeffrey was trying to lighten my spirits, he told me I was going to his island to meet a new client. He is a Harvard professor named Stephen Blank. I would be spending 2 days with him, showing him around the island, dining with him, and treating him to a massage whenever he wanted. Without Jeffrey even verbalizing the need to have sex with him, he told me to keep him happy like I had my first client. I mean, if she hasn't gotten the picture by this time, she's really dense, but she has. Once again, I'm not condoning this lifestyle. I'm just saying this is not the same as what was going on with Ron Eppinger and what's going on, you know, with these girls who are being held and having to service 10, 20 men coming, a revolving door of men coming in the rooms and or being passed around, being sold, being beaten. This is just the Me Too movement has been covering that stuff up and aiding and abetting because, see, the feminists, they want to empower and enable the rapists, the pedophiles, and violence in society because it terrorizes society. And a terrorized society you can control. They're afraid. Oh, I'll protect you. This is precisely why the United States has been importing all of these legal drugs into the country, and they want the drug cartels, everything that's going on in Mexico. This is what they want. This is what I've been challenging the State Department on this issue since I lived in Colombia with their Plan Colombia. I said, yeah, okay, get rid of the drugs here, it'll just go elsewhere. So what are you doing to get rid of the drug consumption in the United States? Voila, we got Virginia Guiffre explaining, no, we want it. We want all the whores and pimps and drugs in our country. I packed my suitcase with island apparel and kissed TJ goodbye, who had at least offered me a warm embrace upon the news of my miscarriage, but none other than knowing it wasn't his. Well, I mean, she says it's not his. I mean, he's like, well, yeah, I'm sorry. Stephen was a quirky little man with white hair and a mad scientist look about him. See, she wants this Cinderella story, and life is just not like that. And this is where, I criticize Cornelia Guest, but it's not Cornelia alone. Nancy Reagan was promoting this, Catherine Oxenberg, all of New York high society. This is Princess of Greece. Her daughter, what is it? Apollonia or something like that. Um, it's this Clemency and her daughters. I mean, it's this whole, everybody's got to be a model, a top model, and have all of the men drooling after them. And if you're not that, then you're worthless. You're worthless. Either you're there to serve or you're there as a broodmare. So it's no wonder that, women are such viperous, backstabbing witches. I mean, really, particularly in the case of Clemencia. I mean, she was my neighbor in Colombia, and then she was my neighbor in Madrid. So what is that? 13, 14 years at least. Maybe not, but at least a dozen. And, I remember the last time I talked to her, oh, she had done a documentary on Colombia. I'm like, excuse me, that's been done. I'm the American. And she's off gallivanting with, what's her face? Oh, it's the mother of my son's friend. Oh, the fashion woman. It'll come to me. I had some coffee in my uh oh, my blood pressure is going all over the place. So anyway, I guess I should just stick to reading. But all of the, oh, and Ingrid Betancourt, that's one of the worst. She was the 2002 presidential candidate in Colombia and anti-corruption and peace for her country. She ran again in 2022. If she had been working with me all of these years instead of off in Oxford studying human rights, then we wouldn't be here today. Stephen was a quirky little man with white hair, a mad scientist look about him. I wonder who this is. We arrived separately, let's see, and greeted him when one of the housekeepers picked him up from the airport and arrived by boat instead of helicopter, as Jeffrey and Ghislaine often arrived on. We made our acquaintances, and he looked as if he was tripping over himself with words, obviously delighted with my company and location for the weekend. I showed him around as Jeffrey had asked and took him on an adventurous quad bike ride around the small curvy paths, leading the way and letting loose my hair, doing something that gave me a natural high instead of a prescription one. The sights alone were breathtaking from the mountainous peaks of the untouched parts of the island. We sat at a cliff and just sat there, not a word to each other, besides to complement the sights, Mother Nature, that appealed to us. I didn't feel as if I owed this stranger anything but what was expected of me by Jeffrey. And I could be polite, I just couldn't be myself. We got back to the main villa to see what time dinner would be served, so we could have time to unpack and clean up beforehand. We both met at 6 p.m. for dinner on the outside veranda. He sat at the head of the table, and I sat next to him, politely folding my napkin to put in my lap. The first time Jeffrey and Ghislaine had seen me cut meat and eat with a fork and knife, they were so appalled, making fun of my unsophisticated habits. Ghislaine took the fork and knife in her hands and proceeded to show me how to politely cut my food and eat. Now that my mannerisms had improved, they wouldn't have to be worried about my etiquette when someone important was around. Anyone. We both drank the red wine. You see, this reminds me of My Fair Lady, Pygmalion. You know, they teach her how to walk and to talk and to act like a proper young lady. Yes, well, see, it's all just a charade. And this is the problem these days. All of these girls, I mean, Erica Kirk, even Candace Owens, she has been, I thought I just contacted her a year ago. It's been, first time I contacted her, I think this would have probably been when she got fired over the Black Lives Matter stuff, because that's what it was really about. Because they want, I mean, the whole fraudulent nonprofit industry needs to be dismantled. But, you know, she's, let's just say, like, when the subject comes up, she hasn't touched the subject of all of the you know, the nonprofit pyramid schemes, all of that stuff. She had a nonprofit and she was earning $250,000 as its head. So, you know, and I mean, it boggles the mind that she hasn't contacted me with all of the work that I've done on feminism, and then the same stuff that she's exposing about Freud, I have, but then how that is being used in the family courts to hand over children. So, you know, she's the typical journalist podcaster that exposes enough to be popular and, scandalize people, but remain on that, well, we're not going to do anything about this and not expose the things that are gonna, how shall I say, ignite some sort of reaction and to get rid of the nonprofit, you know, or anything like that. So she definitely, as I say, she's on that line of like, no, we're here to entertain, but maintain the status quo. I mean, Gary Melton, he is so obvious, it's not even funny. I mean, really, the way things are going right now, I'm like, is this all a psyop? All of it, even with Candace having her part. Because the thing is if Tyler Robinson is the patsy and they don't want him to go down, either go to prison, life imprisonment, or the death penalty, they need somebody to make some noise and say, wait a second, it's not him. And that's Candace. That's Candace in this game. Um, and then we have this, drama now with Candace coming out, the Erica Kirk documentary. This reminds me of the fountain fight between Joan Collins, between the Carrington, Alexis Carrington, and Linda Evans. What was her name? She was the second wife. She was the good one, and Alexis Carrington was the villain. She was the J.R. Ewing. This is Dynasty, which is after Dallas. Yeah, this is all. See, Dynasty and Dallas were selling this whole lifestyle of the rich and famous that Guiffre is embracing. We both drank the red wine supplied on the table, and it seemed to warm me up on the breezy night. By the time dinner was served and another red wine bottle later, he seemed to get funnier. I made fun of his tousled hair, and he poked at me for my skinny legs, calling me a wannabe anorexic. When dessert was brought out, he asked if he could receive one of the delightful massages he had been hearing about from Jeffrey. I gulped more red wine down and sweetly complied with his offer, dreading the moment I'd have to see his naked body, let alone touch it. I mean, she thinks that she's going to have this life of luxury handed to her for free. I mean, come on. Again, I'm not condoning this. It's just she shouldn't, like, no, I'm not going to do this. I mean, okay, now she's at the island. She's already, accepted this situation. I'm not going to, like, right now. That would be ridiculous. As I say, Jeffrey, at first there was the hotel. Well, she could have walked away there. She didn't. When I say the hotel, it was or when she was sent to the first guy and gave the massage to the pregnant wife. But as I'm saying, she could have walked away. He says, oh, we're going to an island and you're going to be with this guy. She knows what she's going to. And it's not some hunting party where she's going to be hunted by people who are going to rape or kill her if they catch her. And apparently see, I didn't believe some of this stuff that these girls were describing. I was like, well, wait a second, you're mixing apples and oranges, because from the description that Virginia Guiffre is describing here, they shut down Studio 54, so these rich billionaires are just setting one up at their private islands. Everybody for New Year's Eve, all of these billionaires were down at one of these islands down in the Caribbean. They were all there. And I'm sure many of them had their sugar babies with them. Let's see. I asked the housekeeper, Kathy, that had been serving us that night to please have someone set up a massage bed in one of the cabanas. I went to my room to down a few Xanax, telling him I wanted to freshen up after dinner, but to meet me in his cabana in 20 minutes or so. I was ready to go as I had said. 20 minutes later, with the effects of the tablets mixed with the red wine, and I would be free not to feel anything. Yeah. He was still dressed when I got in the cabana, obviously not accustomed to this and a lot shyer than what I had been used to. So I told him he'd need to undress and lie face down on the table, putting a towel to cover his bare bottom to prevent him feeling embarrassed during the massage. I gave the massage my earnest, as I always had, and quickly got through having intercourse with him, not wanting to make any foreplay or anything extravagant out of it. I let him think that's as good as it got, and by the smile on his face, I thought I had done enough. The next day, I took him down to the beach for a real massage under a tiki hut on the water's edge. It was one of Jeffrey's favorite places to have a massage as he droned out the sound of the waves and my gentle therapeutic strokes. Afterwards, we had lunch back at the main villa and went back down to the beach to swim out to the water, trampoline about 100 meters off the dock. He didn't do any bouncing around or anything like that. It was just a good base point for a rest spot after a long swim. What was really cool about it, though, was you could see through the mesh and watch fish swimming underneath. The rest of the afternoon we spent by the pool reading magazines and eating fruit plates. Eventually, he went to his cabana to have a nap later on. That night after dinner, and my mixed cocktail of Xanax and red wine, I asked if he'd like another massage before I went to bed. He just wanted to stay up watching movies in Jeffrey's theater room. Peculiar as that request was to me, I didn't argue it. I just hoped that I hadn't disappointed him in any way that could make it back to Jeffrey. I showed him how to, you see, she didn't want to lose her job. I showed him how to use the remote and turned off the TV when he was finished before going to bed. The next morning, we were both catching a flight from St. Thomas, and we had no time for anything other than breakfast and packing, which saved me from having to be too polite as we said our goodbyes from the terminal. She did use the two in the proper this time. As we said our goodbyes from the terminal in the airport, both hurriedly off in separate directions, thankfully. I arrived back in Palm Beach, only to be told to catch another flight the next day to NYC, where Jeffrey would fix me up the money he owed me for treating his colleague out to an entertaining weekend. I mean, I'm sorry, people, this is prostitution. This is underage prostitution, sugar baby prostitution. Yeah, it's prostitution. Which the feminists have been promoting for a long, long time. And this free sex and this whole lifestyle. This is why, I mean, Piers Morgan, just Google him. He goes, Marbella, Monte Carlo. Part of his brand, I think that's kind of what he's concerned of at the moment. I mean, when Lady Harvey said on his platform, Piers Morgan, you're in the Epstein files. He was like, what? I mean, his face. And he's getting nervous. He's getting nervous. But as she pointed out, and this, thank you very much, Lady Harvey, but get off your high horse as well, because you're there with Cornelia Guest and Lady Oxenberg, or Catherine Oxenberg. She was a princess. Of like what now is Czechoslovakia, I think. But see, this gets back to, in fact, I was telling my siblings that nobody is comprehending the humanitarian crisis all these little bitches at FACO, Federation of American Women's Clubs Overseas, IMF Family Association, World Bank Family Network, I mean, They know me. They know about, for the past 20 years, they know. I have posted everything on the internet. They have no excuse, just like everybody from Foxcroft, everybody from Cobham, everybody I know. They have no excuse and say they didn't know because it's posted on the internet. And I've been sending emails and social media campaigns. That's all I do. Until you give me my kids back, that's all I care about. Um, and even once you get me my kids back and do give me some money, that's so I can have some decent housing. That's another thing. I don't want them coming here to Washington in the state that I'm living. And I shouldn't be living in this state. Everybody in this city is cashing in with $1 million homes and party hardy and just it's obscene. And we need to drain them all. See, that's what nobody wants the people to think about. So we're going to start more wars. You know, the problem in Mexico. Oh, well, maybe if we would stop consuming so many drugs, we wouldn't end up with the drug producer countries with all of this violence. Okay. I don't know if I'll have time to do another chapter before I have to get going. Let's see. Okay, so next will be chapter 10. Where are we going to go with chapter 10? So I guess she is back in Palm Beach, probably here in chapter 10. Okay. Bye-bye.